now for more analysis on this historic meeting. Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois, who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, also a major in the Air National Guard. Great to have you with us tonight.
Thanks. Good to be with you.
Okay, so I want to play a little bit of something from Harry Kazanias. He is with the Center for National Interest, North Korea, his specialty area, about whether or not they're actually going to be willing to give up their nuclear program. Here's what he says.
Nuclear weapons are essentially part of North Korea's DNA. Asking them to get rid of their nuclear weapons is the equivalent of having them asked to be cut off their arm or something like that. It's literally built into their constitution.
And it really is their deterrent and protection for the regime. So how convinced are you that they will actually be willing to talk about giving them up?
Well, I don't want to say I'm overly convinced, because I think we have to be very sober in this. This is absolutely historic, and had we been talking 6 months ago, I never would have expected to see this. But this is a very important moment, and we have to remember how we got here. The president put on some pretty intense sanctions against North Korea, isolating the regime, brought our allies and frankly their adversaries in as part of that, showed a credible military option, and I think was very ready to use it to prevent a nuclear North Korea. That compelled. At that point, Kim Jong-un was like, no, I'm going to get nuclear weapons. It is part of our Constitution and our duty or whatever to self-protection. But it was at that moment when he saw the pressure coming in and a real military option and a president willing to use it, that I think it has compelled them to the table. Now, what's it going to look like? What is denuclearization going to look like? We have to see, but I've got to tell you, Kim Jong-un knows that the president has put a red line down, which basically says, and Pompeo has too, that says this needs to be in perpetuity and verifiable. And I think anything short of that, we're not going to have a deal.
And you know, a number of your Democratic counterparts there in the House have been very critical. They say the president's performance at the G7 and the fact that he's not working with their allies, and they say being a little bit too friendly and kind to someone like Kim Jong-un, they've got concerns. Here's a statement. This is headed up by House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and some other top Democrats saying this. We are deeply concerned by the administration's sidelining of diplomacy and undermining of American leadership on the global stage. Later on adding, most recently with his behavior at the G7 summit, the president alienated our closest friends at a time when the United States should be affirming the Western alliance as the cornerstone of global security. What do you make of that critique?
Well, look, I didn't like all of the tone at the G7, and, you know, there's people that said something about so-and-so is going to rot in hell or has a special place in hell. I don't like all that tone. But the president, there's no doubt, went into the G7 and said, here's what I want. I want a better deal for the American people. You may not, it may offend somebody's senses, and again, there were things I would have done differently, but taking that, I think that serious moment of saying, this is what I'm coming in for, and then going to Singapore with that, you know Kim Jong-un was watching. And he was watching that and saying, this is a president that's not going to flex on what he wants. Now, our alliance with Canada and Europe, that will last. That has lasted for hundreds of years. It'll last for hundreds of more years. But to be able to take that intense moment and say, I'm serious about what I'm doing, to this summit, they can handshake, they can smile and everything else. But if Kim Jong-un thought that he could say, how about denuclearization in 20 years, or how about maybe an 8-year deal like we had in Iran, I think any notion that he could do that was thrown out the window.
Yeah, and that is not a deal this White House has said they would take. The president has repeatedly said he would walk away if that became the conversation. So we'll see. We should soon know, within a couple of hours, what happened in that meeting, at least the U.S. version of events. Congressman, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Anytime.